What's going on, guys? Welcome to part 2 of my series on getting started with your DJI Mavic Air. So in this part of the video we are going to go over the software features of the app as well as actually getting the drone up into the sky. So stick with us and we'll hop right into it. Alright guys, so the next thing I'm going to show you is actually the software within the DJI Go 4 app. Before we put it up in the sky, you want to be familiar with what all the buttons are going to be doing. So we're going to go ahead and go right into the app, and as you can see we have DJI Mavic Air up, so we want to go ahead and go fly. So we'll go ahead and click on that. And we're upside down, there we go. As you can see here, now it's going to give you an aircraft status every time you launch into the app. It'll do a firmware check usually in the screen prior to this. If you need an update, you can do it from right there. Once you're in here, you can see it has the latest firmware in the top. And we'll just go through here, and we are in GPS flight mode at the moment. That means that it has connected successfully to enough GPSs that it can use a GPS signal to fly at the moment. If it doesn't have enough GPS signal, it can just use relative data, but it's not going to be able to fly as high or as far due to safety reasons. It needs that GPS to be able to fly in a safe manner. So if you don't have GPS signal, you might have to just move the drone around a little bit and get it to connect. Hold it up in the sky, just get it to connect. Usually you want about 10 or more GPS connections for a relatively strong signal. Next you have compass. Normal means that it is okay to go. It's not interfering with anything and it's okay. IMU, we're normal there. That is like the level of the drone. Maximum altitude, we can set that to whatever we want. Make sure you check your local laws so that you're not flying higher than you're allowed to, but you can set it anywhere between 20 and 50 meters. Maximum flight distance is disabled. If you want to set that, you can go ahead and click. And that'll take us into settings that we don't want to be in right now. Next is the ESC status. We can see that's normal. Vision sensors, which is the cameras on the front of the drone that ensures not going to crash into anything. We got normal there, so that is good to go. Remote controller mode, we can change that from here. We're currently in mode 2, which is the recommended mode. That's what I explained to you in this video with the joysticks. Remote controller battery, you can check. We have 18% battery here, a little low, but we're just going to roll with it for this video. Button customization, those buttons that I showed you before on the drone controller itself, that is controlled from right here. So the FN button is the one right on the face, and the C is the one on the back of the controller here. So you can just set them to be whatever you want by clicking on them, and as you can see right there, there's a bunch of different settings you can set it to do. If we keep going through here, aircraft batteries at 87%, so we're good to fly with that. Aircraft battery temperature, 22 degrees Celsius. Gimbal status is normal, and remaining SD card capacity can be read from here, as well as the internal storage on the drone itself. That's also in the status page of the app. So once we get through that, usually just briefly skim through that before you get up in the air, make sure everything looks good. If you're moving locations a lot of the times the compass will need to be recalibrated. So we're normal right now, but if that says it's not, you can calibrate it from that screen, or we can use the 3-dot menu in the top right corner here. And that's where you're going to access all the settings of your drone. So when you're in here, you can go ahead and click on, we'll start at the top. So this is the aircraft settings. If you're flying for the first time, you might want to go into beginner mode. That could be toggled right here. Let's turn that off. We don't want that. Okay. We'll go back and turn that off. Alright, we got that off. That's just going to slow it down, keep you in a smaller radius so you're not flying super far away. All that fun stuff. Again, we have maximum altitude here. The distance limit is set from within here, so if we turn that on, it'll set how far away you can go from where you took off from. And then we also have advanced settings here, which is where you will check gain and expo tuning, your sensor state. You can set different things for cinematic mode with braking and yaw sensitivity, as well as setting what happens if the RC signal is lost. This is a pretty important one. Depending on what you're flying, you might not want it to do certain things. So by default, it's going to return to home when it loses signal. If you don't want that to happen, you can go ahead and click here, and you can set it to either land in place of where it is at, or it'll just hover while you can attempt to get your controller to reconnect. Usually return to home works pretty well. Just make sure you have the return to home altitude set high enough that it'll fly over any obstacles while coming back so that it doesn't get lost. Again, now from in here, sensor state, you can check the IMU sensors as well as the compass. And if you need to calibrate the compass, you can go ahead and click that right there. I'll show you how to do that in a minute before we take off, but we'll keep going through these settings here. If we go to visual navigational settings, this is where you're going to set all of your obstacle sensing, if you want it on or off, so you can set that on depending on which options you want. If you don't want it, a lot of times when you're flying indoors or around obstacles, you're not going to want that because you're not going to be able to fly. For beginners, you definitely almost always want that on just to keep you safe so you're not crashing into anything. We have advanced settings there as well that gives us downward vision positioning, landing protection, and return to home obstacle avoidance. So this way, if it is coming to return to home, it's not going to crash into something if you have your elevation off. But obviously if you have trees that are all at 200 feet and you have return to home set to 150, it might be a little difficult. So usually you want to try to set that just to be safe. Now we'll go into the remote controller settings. Here you could do the remote controller calibration by clicking on that. We don't want to do that right now. Ours is pretty calibrated. Stick mode, you can go ahead and click that. We're in mode 2. There's mode 1, mode 2, mode 3, depending on your preferences, or you could do a custom. We'll go back, and that's about all we have in that setting. Next we go to the Wi-Fi settings, where you can check the channels and see which ones are congested, which one you're on is in the blue, and which ones are stable. We just have ours set to auto. Next, we can go to aircraft battery status. It'll show us the voltage on each cell, as well as the temperature of the battery, and here you can also set where you get the low battery warning. So we have ours set to 25%. You can lower that if you want. I'd recommend keeping that kind of where it's at. I wouldn't bring it down too far so that you don't end up losing your drone. Final settings here is the gimbal settings. So if you go ahead down into that, you can set the gimbal mode to be either follow or FPV. Follow is going to keep it steady, FPV is going to keep it a little more following first-person view of the drone. You can also do camera advanced settings, speed. You can have 3 different configurations preset with all of these depending on what you're trying to film. So we'll go back from that. Recenter gimbal, adjust gimbal, auto calibrate gimbal is all in here. And then we finally have general settings down at the bottom. USA, we're going to use Imperial. If you're somewhere else, use something else. Live stream platform, if you want to live stream, is in here. Cache locally when recording. And just all the other general settings you could be found in here. So that's everything for the settings. And just a quick overview of this main home screen now. As you can see at the top, we have remote controller battery low, so that's normally not going to be on. Normally that'll say ready to fly, and it'll say GPS or whatever type of flying you're in. You can see that also with the little drone in the top right. Next to that, you have your amount of satellites connected to. We have 16, and it also shows the quality of the signal. Next to that, in the white with the little circle with all the beacons coming out of it, that one's going to just show us our obstacle sensing is working. If it's red, that means it's not working. Next to that shows us the Wi-Fi connection between the controller and the drone. And then finally we have our battery on the next to that in the green. The percentage is saying 82%, so we have 82% battery left on our drone. Below all that stuff is just camera information where we can see the ISO, shutter, white balance, and all of that kind of stuff right there. Below that you have your camera switch modes, so with the little arrows we click on that and that'll switch to video mode and camera mode. From there we have our camera capture, which is the white circle on the right hand side here, which again, like I said, you can use the buttons on the back of the controller, which is much easier than needing to click it on the screen. And then finally below that, where we have the 3 lines with the 3 circles in them, that's going to give us our camera settings. So we can either go into auto mode, or we can go into manual, where we can set our ISO, shutter speed. From there we can go to the camera here, and that's where you can set what you want to take. So single shot, HDR, all the different camera settings, as well as the image ratio, format, white balance, style, and color can be set from here. Finally, we have a settings tab here where you can turn on the histogram, video captions, and anything else from here that you can see in the list. So that is all the camera settings. And the final button on the right hand side there is going to be this play button in the bottom right. So if we go ahead and click on that, that's going to just take us into the gallery where we can see everything that was shot. So we'll go ahead and go back and we'll go over the controls on the left hand side now. The DJI button in the top left will just take you back to that home screen. Now below that we have the white circle with an arrow pointing up. That's going to be to take off. Below that we have our return to home symbol, which is very similar to the return to home symbol on the controller itself. Below that we have what looks like a controller. That means we're in normal mode. If you click on that, you can change to all of your different camera modes: quick shot, active track, smart capture, cinematic. Whatever you need is in there. You can go ahead and click them and switch to those modes. APAS is going to enable automatic passing. So if you go ahead and click that, yes. Once it is blue, that means it's enabled. Currently we're not in the sky, so it's not going to enable. But when you click that, that enables it. And from there, that means that it'll avoid any obstacles and just go right around them rather than just stopping if it sees them. Finally, we have the map. So if you were to click on that, that'll make it bigger. And it will just track as you're flying where the flight path went. And then on the bottom we have the D, which shows the distance from takeoff point horizontally. It's just kind of a radius, and then H is going to show us our elevation from takeoff. So HS is going to show us our horizontal speed, and VS is going to show us our vertical speed. So that is all of the settings on the screen here, and the next part is we're just going to take it off. Alright guys, so now here for liftoff, it's pretty easy to do. There is two ways to go into liftoff. The first way to do it does not require any touching of the phone. It's just strictly from the controller. And to do that, you'd want to put your two fingers on each joystick and pull down and then pull out. And you can see that'll get your rotors spinning up, so you can make sure that they're spinning okay. And to turn that off, you just push this joystick down and it'll stop. Now the next way to take off is from within the app. So as you can see here, we have our takeoff button right here, and if we were to go ahead and click on that, you go ahead and slide to take off, and the drone will just automatically take off on its own, just like that. So as you can see, the drone is now in the sky, and it can be controlled from the controls like I showed before. Right here, this will take it back, this will take it forward, and you can control left, right, all from right there. Again, use the left joystick to go down and up, as well as control which way you want to be pointing the front of the drone. So then to land the drone, we can either do the return to home button, where you click this and go ahead and slide that to return to home, or you can just take the drone yourself, line it up with where you want to land, and then just use the joysticks, bring it down right over your landing pad here, just like that, and then just hold the joystick down and it'll come down and land right on your helipad. Alright guys, so that is all we have for you today. If you liked the video, you can give us a thumbs up down below. If you want to see more content like that, please subscribe to the channel also down below. And if you have any questions about the drone, any comments, you can put those right down in the comments section. Thanks for watching guys, you rock, and I will see you next time.